I
Mm,
discovered that what I once thought was androgynous or non-binary
hmm.
is called two-spirit.
Hey friends, it's TJ, and you're listening to Tea with TJ, where our love for tea, conversation, and self improvement intersect. So let's take a deeper dive into my cup and let's have a chat. Hey friends, it's TJ. Welcome back to another episode of Tea with TJ. And today I have a very unique and special guest, someone we've not had on the show before, musician, singer, all of the above. I'd love to introduce Eight to the show. Welcome.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, good. So happy to have you. Thank you for doing this. So quickly for our listeners and watchers, can you just tell me your story?
Well, I come from New York. I am a artist and an activist in the community, so I've been doing a lot of things for years in that realm. And now I'm getting ready to launch a new business and a new brand that is a whole entire wellness brand that also encompasses the music, the art, the film, the fashion. It's all encompassing. And it's been pretty exciting. And I think a part of my journey was finding myself along that route to get to this point and to find everything that I was meant to do and to find my purpose. And it feels good to finally be at that point. Of course, there were struggles and things along the way. We could sit here and talk for days about that. But other than that, it's just been good finally getting on a path that feels divine to me.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. You mentioned that you are an artist,
Hmm.
and you are dropping one of your songs with us exclusively here on Tea with TJ. We are so grateful for. So
Yeah.
let's play that so we can get a little listen.
Hmm.
Switch up, that's why I switch up, switch up, switch up. Oh, babe, you wonder why I'm on a different page. You never thought I'd ever act this strange. I warned you about this side that comes to play. You ain't got no skin in the game. Do you remember all the lies, all the shit that you tried, but you couldn't let me in my eye? Kept crossing the line, got a criminal mind, and I get you every time. You might wanna watch your back, cause I'm about to react. Fuck all that nice guy shit, and I know what's coming up next. Oh no, baby, please don't let me go. I know I said this time and time before, but there is nobody like me outside that door. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. That's why I switch up, switch up, switch up. That's why I switch up, switch up, switch up. That's why I switch up, switch up, switch up. That's why I switch up, switch up, switch up. That's why I switch up, switch up, switch up. That's why I switch up.
That, and I assume the title of the song is called Switch Up.
Yeah.
Yes, love it.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing that. Can you just give us a bit of background on your journey as an artist and specifically what prompted you to create what I assume is going to be a full album, but
Uh-huh.
specifically this song?
Well, the song itself actually came about kind of quickly, which was interesting because I'm one of those people that can be like a perfectionist to an extent or an overthinker. And sometimes in my writing process, I will think about things kind of very thematically. Like sometimes when I'm in the process of doing or writing songs and doing stuff, it will be more from like a concept of what I think I want it to be. But as I've gotten further along in my songwriting process and being a songwriter, it is more about just feeling how you feel in that moment and expressing yourself. And for Switch Up, I was kind of like in a place where I was going through some things in a relationship, but also just in general, and feeling like me being who I was and being of love and light was being taken advantage of, and people would look at it as like, oh, you're weak, or that they could do whatever they needed to do. and I had to remind them of the Leo that I am. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And be like, hold on a second, because I know I'm a good person and I try to like give, be genuine and give the right love and everything when I meet people and be friendly. But at the end of the day, if you're going to bring a certain energy to me or disrespect me or anything, then I'm going to match you with the same thing and
Mm-hmm.
then be done with it.
That is fair. That is fair. There are a few lyrics that I want to pull out in listening to this when you sent the track to me to insert into the episode that stuck out to me, and I would love to get your take on how you came to those lyrics and like what inspired you to create those lyrics. But it is, oh baby, you wonder why I'm on a different page. You never thought that I'd ever act this strange. I warned you about this side that comes to play. You ain't got no skin in the game, which I thought was such an interesting um, lyrical moment. So I'm very curious to know where those lyrics came from, if it's okay for you to share.
Yeah, I'd love to. That part, the first verse specifically that you're talking about, is that process of like that moment where someone kind of tries you and then also tries to manipulate you in the way of thinking like, oh, you're not this type of person, or like, where's this coming from? And this is after being kind of gaslit, or your boundaries being pushed, or even just abused in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to a point where you're like, you set your boundaries. And sometimes I'll admit, like, I have a bit of a fire in me, so I can kind of bring that to them, and it can come across a pretty jarring, like, oh, whoa, they didn't see the flames coming. But
Mm-hmm.
so that first verse to me kind of came just very naturally in how I felt about people and in the way that they move, and how, like, you know you're not don't ever underestimate people. Even for me, I think it's a good thing to know in general. You shouldn't underestimate someone, because you never know what they're going through or
Mm-hmm.
what they've had to go through to get where they're at. So that's where a lot of that came from.
I love that. And it's interesting, and I don't think either of us set this up this way, but I love that it has still somehow found its way into the episode itself. But when I gave you some topics to choose from, you chose Seasons of Change, Navigating Transitions with Grace, which I feel like, based on this song, kind of ties into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, one, before we start into the actual questions, what kind of stuck out to you about choosing that topic?
Well, it was just the fact that I feel like a lot of us are in a transitional state right now. From what I've seen within my line of work, I work for the mental health, and, I'm very community based and do a lot of outreach as well. And just even on a personal level in my own life, I just feel like it's something that we're all going through. And I feel like we're all kind of going into this weird gray space. And sometimes that's hard to navigate. I know for me, I like control over certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're in that season of change, it's funny because I was just explaining to someone how, as I got older, I used to love summertime as my favorite season,
Mm-hmm.
because it was my birthday. It was, fun times, whatever, as a kid. But as I
Mm-hmm.
got older, I started to really love the fall and appreciate the sort of coziness and the laid back,
Mm-hmm.
nature of it, and the colors changing, and, and someone who is spiritual in my, supporters told me, they were like, you kind of have your own season. Like, you love, I think you've realized that your season is like an amalgamation of summer and fall, which is essentially autumn.
Mm-hmm.
And you will notice as well within my brand and with the things that I'm doing, that will all kind of like play into that as well. Particularly the Switch Up single cover, when that
Mm-hmm.
is released, has, orange, reddish, fiery tones to it
Mm-hmm.
and golden tones. So everything is in that kind of lane, and like, me speaking from a place of just authenticity and how I feel,
Mm-hmm.
and discovering myself on a spiritual level and what my purpose is in this world, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah. So I get that. I definitely echo that because there's, dear God, there are so many transitions happening in my life right now. Even this show, to a degree, that by the time this comes out, I think it would have been a year since our last season. And it's
Yeah.
purely because of schedule and work and like auditioning and trying to live life. So it's been an interesting time. And even now, I'm about 2 months out from possibly going on tour, which is a whole nother transition of things that I have to adjust to. But I want to dive into this topic because I think that people are really going to love this episode based off of me knowing your energy exchange and kind of understanding who you are as a person. So what transitions in your life has kind of like shaped you the most?
Ooh, that's a deep question, loaded
Welcome to
question.
the show.
Yes. Um, Things that have really like transitioned me or that were big transitions for me were, I mean, obviously I've moved to Florida a few years back. And you know this as well, being
Mhm.
someone who has been from the transit of Florida and New York and how that
Mhm.
all goes. It's a culture change. It's different,
Mhm.
it's different worlds in a sense. Uh, and I have went through my share of trauma even while
Mhm.
being there. But it's taught me a lot of life lessons. I've also dealt with a lot of things regarding family,
Mhm.
whether that was stating my boundaries with certain people who are disrespectful,
Mhm.
or even, dealing with certain things with family, taking care of other
Mhm.
family members and things like that. So I think the big transits for me that happened were the relationships that kind of kept giving that same hard lesson. Like, you need to kind of wake up out of this and,
Mhm.
pay attention to yourself more, love yourself more. And giving myself the excuse to do that too, like to be more in a state of
Mhm.
me
Mhm.
for once
Mhm.
and be the totality of what eight is and the infinite person that I know I can be. But I was avoiding that for so long, and I think that was
Mhm.
a big part of my rebrand and rebirth, was being away with the old and welcoming in the new, whether it was scary or not,
Mhm.
you know.
Love that. I feel like we all kind of deserve a good reset in our
Hmm.
lives because I feel like between I'm only 36, so like I've lived a little bit of life, but not a whole lot yet, God willing. But I've had a good chunk of transitions in my life that I think has kind of shaped me to become the person that I am now. There are just certain things that I don't put up with anymore. There are certain attitudes and personalities that I'm like, you know what? No, I'm good.
I
Thank you, but no
agree.
thank you.
Hmm.
And I had to learn that, unfortunately, in some circumstances, the hard way. But I think it has helped kind of grounded me and solidified who TJ is. And I think
Yeah.
for a good chunk of time, I would say, like, especially after moving to New York, I think for a good chunk of time, um, I debated with myself on whether or not to set some of those boundaries, to be able to say no, or to say yes to certain things. So I completely get where you're coming from and understand. Um, I'm curious to know, how do you know when it's time to like pivot for you in those like transitional moments?
When you've kind of on a mental level, or even on a mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, soul level, where you realize that everything, it does no longer fit you. It's like you've outgrown your circumstance
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, which is something I'm kind of currently going through, but also see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like, fully distracted or misguided or disrupted by it. I'm just staying on the path. But I think that it's when you start to feel like this isn't right anymore and this
Mhm.
isn't for me. And I could say it is an innate feeling. It is kind of intuitive,
Mhm.
and you just kind of know. I mean, there are some people, which was something else that, I mean, we could probably talk all day about, but I got into a conversation with someone I caught up with recently about um, people choosing not to check in on themselves or try
Mhm.
to work on certain things and
Mhm.
self-evaluate and everything. And but expecting you to kind of just entertain whatever it is that they keep cycling through. And
Yeah.
that's just not a healthy space. And I won't do that either, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. Agreed.
So,
Agreed. I firmly, firmly believe that we all deserve to constantly check in with ourselves because we are beings that are constantly evolving, right? Constantly learning, constantly pivoting um, to what is needed in the moment. And I think, and I will speak for myself in this moment and say that like there have been moments in my life where I thought I wanted something, or I thought I was trying to go after a dream or a goal, and trying to um, make those things happen, but then having to check in with myself and say, wait a minute, is that actually what I want? You know what I mean? Is that what I'm actually going after, or am I going after it because I think that's what I want, or I was told that that's what I want, which is
right,
a whole nother can of worms
thing. Yeah.
that could be
Yeah.
open. Um, what emotions come up for you during those like big changes?
I mean, if I'm being honest, like I deal with my own anxiety,
Mm,
depression issues at times. So if I'm being transparent, I have definitely felt kind of in a dark space or just felt like I wasn't able to climb out of it and do what I needed to do to get where I
mm,
needed to be. And it's that feeling of like, I guess like the world is ending kind of thing,
mm, mhm,
and it's not, of course, but, and I've gotten better over years with that. Like, I think when you do the work and you do the healing and you go along the journey and you really are diligent on your own self work, I think you get to a point where you find the tools that are coping mechanisms to make things better. And you
mhm,
see along your journey that certain stuff that you handled a certain way starts to
mhm,
be handled in a better way
mhm,
as long as you keep going and you finally feel like you have more of a grip on life and
mhm.
what you have going on.
I
Yeah.
agree. And you said something that I kind of want to just go a little bit deeper with. What does that self work look like for you?
My self work, I mean, it took a while for me to get to it. I would try different things, but then I eventually, especially within my line of work, I apply some of the tools that I've learned throughout my work. It's like breathing exercises. I do
Mhm,
yoga. I do guided meditation.
mhm,
I do all these things from more of a holistic base
mhm,
that I really go for, but I'm always about resources and researching into things that can help and better you in any type of format. And
mhm,
actually, that's what a part of my wellness brand that I'm launching is doing.
mhm,
It's something that is a collective of both the creative as well as the community and mental health based people that have needs. And I
mhm,
felt like it would be something that we could just mold together so that
mhm,
people could feel like they had their expression, their authenticity, their autonomy, and everything
mhm,
that they feel as a person to be expressed, but also be understood for their lived experience and what their challenges are. You know what I mean?
mhm, mhm, mhm. I use that phrase so often when I'm talking to people and when I'm having specific conversations. That lived experience is such valuable insight, and I think it
Hmm.
really informs who we are as human beings. And I think it for myself, again, I can only speak for myself in this moment, but for me, it informs how I interact with the world and how I interact with other people. Because
Yes.
even though I have a certain lived experience, right, does not necessarily mean that the person that I am engaging with has that same lived experience, right? So I
Correct.
personally feel like I am constantly trying to be not only aware of myself, but aware of other people. in how I interact with people and how I possibly judge or not judge people, right? And trying to make sure that I'm always showing up in the best possible version of myself and the most authentic version of myself, so that I feel seen, but also that I can see other people.
Yeah.
How do you find stability in the ways that things like shift around? Because I feel like I have an answer for myself, but I'm curious to know, especially being an artist, especially working in the line of work that you do. Things are constantly shifting, right? Things are always on the fritz. Things are always kind of like in one day, out the next. Like, how do you find stability for yourself? And how do you find like mental clarity for yourself in those moments?
I mean, to be honest with you, TJ, like what I've learned, and this is more so of a recent thing that has really given me stability. And I mean, I'm human. I have my days where it
Totally.
like kind of still teeters, but I figured out that I found my worth and given myself the unapologetic grace to own who I am and love that. Because again, like I mentioned somewhat in terms of like my upbringing, like me being a people pleaser and being somebody who was kind of chasing after certain things, I eventually learned that I didn't have to. It was all here already. And maybe that's why I was going through the things I was going through and the different types of, you know, um, just kind of weird altercations or situations I would be in over life that make you look at things differently and start to see where your power is and what your strengths are. And it has kept me now at my age, it has kept me guided in tunnel vision to know like I can't let all these other things that's going on around me affect me or anybody that tries to pull me out of that or off my pedestal or off my throne, let that do anything to me. You know what I mean? And just keep being me, keep leading with love and light, but keep your eye on the prize and on the horizon because that's all I can do, or I can't let all this other stuff get in the way of it. I've let it do that for too long. So I just think it's about like knowing who you are and keeping a focus on that and not letting anything get in the way. I tell people at work because I have clientele and people like that underneath me, and I do a lot of like, therapy based stuff and community talks and everything. And I tell them like one of the things I say all the time to myself to center myself is to zoom out for a second, come out of all this stuff that we're in, and just have a moment with yourself and everything. And then you could come back in if you feel like it. But sometimes it's best to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I have a similar position on that, where for a really long time, and I think I shared this with you when we met, but I've always struggled with my body image, right? And I've struggled. My weight has fluctuated up and down. I've been small. I've been large. I'm currently large. And I think it wasn't until shortly after 30 where I finally kind of realized, I was like, wait a minute. Yes, I am not unhappy with where I am, but I don't necessarily have to show that outwardly, right? And I get to make a choice for myself how I actually feel about it. Even though I may feel, a certain kind of way, I still get to choose how I get up in the morning, how I appreciate myself and my body, because the reality of the situation is that you only get one, right? At least as far as we know, that you only get one. So it's like, why not love it? Why not appreciate it? Why not take care of it? Why not engage with it in a way to where you feel the most, again, going back to the most authentic version of yourself in whatever form. And so that's something that kind of like that now at 36 stabilizes me. But I also think something that has kind of worked in the back of my mind for, I would say probably in high school, because I used to play trumpet. I was in band in high school. And there were moments when I used to play of like, I don't know if you know much about musical instruments, but
Yeah.
Okay, so when I used to play, there was like certain high notes that I was like, oof, my armature is not great. Like, I don't know how I'm going to play this like successfully 6 times in a row or whatever it is. But I settled on this concept of how time has to pass, right? We can't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is coming is
Mm-hmm.
just going to come. We got to learn how to live with it, deal with it, and move on. And that is kind of how I've viewed the majority of my life, of being like, okay, yeah, this may be a rough moment in time right now, but I also know that tomorrow is coming. I also know that 12 hours from now is coming. I also know that 24 hours is coming from now. So yes, I may feel shitty right now in this moment, but I may not feel shitty in 24 hours. And I think that has kind of been the concept and through line for me of like providing some sort of stability and knowing that there is a moment beyond the current moment.
Yes. You're so
Yeah.
right about that.
So you mentioned a lot about community, which I love. What would you say is the like role of community in supporting change, both for yourself and like in general?
I think, well, do you mean in terms of like what can people do better, or do you mean like how is community essential for people?
Yeah, and I also want to make it personal as well for yourself too. So give me a broader answer of, generalizing and then also specifically what it does for you.
For community, to me, it's all about bringing people together. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as cliche and corny as this may sound,
Mm-hmm.
unity is the objective of community.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think of that in multiple ways. And I think for me, community, which both on a personal level and a professional level has always been in my life because I've had family that's worked in it, but then I also, as a kid, was big on like bringing people together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe because I'm an only child and
Mm-hmm.
I loved like having, a group of people or like, understanding the dynamics of different people coming together to form something that makes a big change or is an
Mm-hmm.
impact. That's why I love the like Power Rangers and Sailor Moon and things like that
Mm-hmm.
because it represented this thing where everybody was their own kind of entity that was powerful
Mm-hmm.
but came together, you know
Mm-hmm.
Captain Planet too. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like, those type of things were what inspired me. But also my family, I remember my grandparents on my mom's side would have people come live with them that were of need
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, homeless in the community, but they knew them through some sort of way and they wanted to take care of them and things like that. And, I saw things like this growing up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just made me, I think also naturally, just my heart as a person,
Mm-hmm.
just cared about people and wanted to do that, and then fell into the path of this line of work because of the connections I made and the people I knew, and then just wanted to make a difference, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
I love that. Yeah,
yeah.
I think community is one of those things that especially I've mentioned this a few times on the show, but I grew up down south, so like I was very much a church kid and like, very much grew up in that neighborhood where everyone on my grandmother's street like knew all the kids and the grandkids and all that. And the moment that I moved away from that into larger cities when I went to school in Chicago and then ultimately moved here, trying to figure out what version of that that I could hold on to for myself while living here was difficult. Because New York, I mean, Chicago is a big city, but it's like
Mhm.
fairly small compared to New York City.
Yeah.
But New York is massive, right? There are so many
Mhm.
cultures and people and personalities and just so much life here. And it's one of the reasons that I love it. But it can cause you to feel siloed if you don't
Mhm.
have any, community at all, especially if you're moving here with nothing. And so it took me a while to figure out where to land when it came to
Mhm.
living here and like figuring out my community and my like group of people, quote unquote, if you get what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But I value it so much because it does, again, going back to being on the other side of 30, it really it's really kind of helped shaped my life, like having a real community in this city, um, and not feeling alone, right?
Yeah,
Um,
because I think having community, and I will say this as I've gotten older as well, because unfortunately, a part of big transitions as well that we're talking about is, you lose certain people or you have to kind of let go of certain things that no
mhm,
longer, fit you.
mhm,
And sometimes that can feel lonely and isolating,
mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And for me, I can say in Florida, it was hard for me up until actually just recently to
Mhm,
find my tribe of
mhm,
people
mhm,
and kind of align with folks. And I think that's why I was saying in reference to relationships I was dealing with out there, it took a minute to deal with people who were like-minded and who weren't trying to
mhm,
have their own agendas or were just kind of weren't right. And
mhm,
I'm not here to judge anyone, but I just mean that it was just very chaotic in a
mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
And for someone coming from New York, where it's like a lot of things are structurized,
Mhm,
it's hard to go somewhere where people are kind of like it's a sort of a no man's land kind of attitude,
mhm,
or let's they kind of try you first and then ask later,
mhm, mhm, mhm.
and that took me a minute to kind of like adjust to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get that. Florida is also Florida. Florida is a lot. It's a lot. No shade to my Florida folks. I love y'all,
Yes, no
but
shade. We love
yeah,
Florida for what it gives, but
yes, but it's a lot. It is a lot. Shifting gears a little bit. How do you mentioned something earlier about spirituality, and I'm curious to know where faith kind of like falls in the grand scheme of things for you, and how does it help you kind of navigate like these big life transitions? Like, have you leaned on anything? Have you let go of anything?
I here's my relationship with spirituality, which has become a big part of my life as well. But I also don't, I'm not a religious person in a
Mhm,
sense where, I do, if I'm being honest, I believe that religion sometimes can be a social construct or a
mhm,
control method that makes people feel very, insecure.
mhm,
And to me, God is love
mhm,
and God is all things. And when I speak of the universe, I'm speaking of God as well.
mhm,
And I believe that a lot of religions even tie into each other. So that's
mhm,
why I don't believe in trying to, hone in on one thing and trying to beat that down onto someone. I think a lot of things are universal
mhm,
and all work within each other in the circle of life, if we're
mhm.
being honest.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think for me, finding my spirituality it was happening slowly along the way anyway, in terms
Mhm,
of like, getting into certain metaphysical things. I remember a sort of spiritual teacher came to me when I was young, like I was like maybe in high school or so, and she was close with my mother. My mother had worked in community and mental health as well, and people knew I was starting to do things that I wanted to pursue, like, in the entertainment world or like just trying to, get to a certain place. And this spiritual mentor of mine, or that's what she became, she told me, she was like, you have a lot of things that are going to be coming for you and that you
mhm,
have a future ahead of you. And she told me a lot of what was coming. And she said that I needed to be spiritually guided. And she said that you already have a lot of protection in that realm, but you need to hone into who you are so that you know what your gifts are and you know how to protect them.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
So I always remember that. She gave me the book The Secret back then. That this was, you know, decades ago.
mhm,
But this was when some of these things that we talk about now that are everywhere, they weren't as big.
mhm,
And no, everyone didn't have crystals and everyone
mhm,
wasn't talking about these things from all the seven chakras and things of
mhm,
that nature. But slowly but surely I kind of learned about all them, and I learned how to hone into my culture as well. I
Mm-hmm.
discovered that what I once thought was androgynous or non-binary
Mm-hmm.
is called two-spirit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And two-spirit is from the Native American indigenous culture
Mm-hmm.
that is representative of my mom's side. And I've always been attached to that culture, always grown up loving it, used to dress like Pocahontas as a kid, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but then discovered at an older age that two-spirited people within the, reservations and within the, indigenous community were held high. And they were
Mm-hmm.
people that were of two spirits, both masculine and feminine,
Mm-hmm.
but of one being,
Mm-hmm.
and were healers and guiders and teachers and people who, were held in high regard, and they put them on a pedestal. And I said, wow, it just made sense for everything that I love and cherish and want to do. And finding that just kind of confirmed for me spiritually who I am, despite whatever has been told to me or programmed since the beginning.
Mm-hmm. I love that. This is perfect. That's amazing. Yeah, I hear you. Like that's a whole nother episode and conversation of like how we have been told so many things and taught so many things that like just don't make sense.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of your time. I'm gonna move on, but know that like that just hit right here for me.
And we can always touch at a
Yeah.
different time. I'm always here for that.
Do you have any like daily practices that kind of help you stay grounded in all of this?
Yes. If I'm being honest, I was just thinking to myself as I'm here and kind of like having time to think about some things. I was saying to myself, I need to start implementing more of these things into my routine more vigorously,
Mm-hmm.
because not so much of because of like, oh, it's just something I need to do, like a healthy responsibility. No, it's more so what I know I need in order to have a good day or to get through certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you need to start in the morning doing your yoga and like meditational, practices,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to take too much time, because I'll be honest, sometimes, I mean, I get up early nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, that used to be a struggle. I wasn't really a morning person.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I'm more up early,
Mm-hmm.
and I find myself having energy once I'm up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to myself, let's try to implement some sort of um, self-care and meditation and a little bit of physical action so that you can be in the right mind state before you head into the day, because I deal with a lot of different energies and people and, you know, things going on between people and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So I have to be able to have those moments to kind of like center,
Mm-hmm. I
you
love that.
know?
I have I mean the tea is definitely my ritual and something that I cannot live without. And it
Which I
definitely
which I need to ask you about as well.
oh,
I
we
need
can have a
some
whole nother
tea
conversation about that
I
now.
need some tea advice.
But it's definitely it is and I don't even know where it started. I think that like there was a moment in time in college where because I've always liked tea, but what kind of cracked my mind open to what tea actually is was around college when I was in Chicago, but opened my mind to like what is actually out there. But I drink like oolongs and greens and rooibos and matcha and pu'ers. Oh, I love a good pu'er.
Mm,
Jesus. But so and all of them hold different
properties.
properties and ritualistic practices for me. So like
Mm,
on like a rainy day, if I'm feeling down, I will likely go for something really strong and bold that's like a pu'er or like a black tea or like a chai or something that feels very warm and cozy and kind of like makes me feel like I'm being hugged.
mm, I
when
love that.
I'm, when I am like in a good mood or feeling very light, and very happy, or like, I feel like the world is very promising, I might go for like a white or a green tea, or, something like that. So I see you and I hear you, because that for
Yeah.
me is in the world of tea. I didn't
Yeah,
mean for
and
that to
and
rhyme, but
I'm
it did.
trying yeah, and I'm trying to get off of my coffee because
Mm,
I'm one of those coffee drinkers in the morning, and I've slowed down from it being more of a casual thing throughout the day. It's
mhm,
more I may have my cup in the morning, like as a
mhm,
ritual sort of thing or routine, and then I go on about my business, and the rest of the day may be like, a sort of smoothie or fruit juice or water,
mm,
things like that. But I want to get into more teas. A friend of mine is into them as well, and she was kind of putting me on to certain things, and I was like, I
mm,
really want to try. I'm a very big chai
mm,
fan,
mhm, mhm.
so I like a kick in it.
Okay,
But
okay.
I also am good for a good old Earl Grey. Like I love a
Mm,
good Earl Grey.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have one more question for you, and then we'll go into our final three.
hmm
Um, what would you say, or like what advice would you give to someone who is kind of standing on the precipice of like some sort of big change or transition in their life?
I would say don't believe the doubt.
Mm, mm, that's fair. That's good. That's
And
good.
as I say that, I'm saying it to myself.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't believe the doubt.
Yeah.
Um, because there's a lot of things that could tell us which way to go, which way not to go.
Mm,
And one of the things I've learned as well is with giving grace to yourself is also knowing that you are the expert of yourself,
mm,
even
yeah.
in its own ebbs and flows, ups and downs, mistakes, mishaps, and everything. All of that is a part of it.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And just kind of learning. And I mean, again, I may feel like some of the things I'm saying may sound like the typical standard self-help, but it's not. It's things that I've
Mm,
actually learned and things that I feel like you have to internalize and look at from a scope of like, this is what matters for me, and this is
mm,
what takes for me to get there, you
mm,
know? And you will see it eventually along the way. You
mm,
will.
yeah.
And for me, that's what I've noticed. And I'm like, I've gotten more confident along the way with every situation that you kind of take a risk with
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of let yourself be yourself
Mm,
in that moment. In the end, you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
mm-hmm.
And I got it and I did it and I can
Mm-hmm.
do it again.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And I don't think it is generic by any means. I think some of the most effective things are the simplest things.
hmm
So, so we have reached our time. Thank you, thank you for doing this.
No, thank
But
you, CJ.
before, of course, before we go, we do this thing on TJ called the last three. Three questions unrelated to the topic, just to share a little bit of extra knowledge to our guests. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. What's something that you've learned to let go?
Hmm. Criticism.
Mm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Um, who in your life feels like sunshine?
My parent.
That's beautiful. And then final question. Where do you feel the most peace?
With myself,
Mm, mm,
alone, away from everything else.
mm.
As isolating as that sounds.
No, I get that. I completely understand that. I love that answer. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank
For this.
you.
I'm glad that we were able to make this happen.
Yes.
Before we go, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram at The Eighth King, as well as TikTok as The Eighth King. And my brand, my wellness brand, which I won't mention the name yet,
Okay.
because, you know, even though legalities are all together, everything's licensed, everything's great, I just want to make sure that, you know, we'll branch that out once we're ready, you know?
We'll be waiting. We will be waiting.
It'll be great.
And then where and when is the song coming out? I almost forgot.
The single will be out around the time of this episode. It will be just around that time. It will be coming out as soon as that, you know, hits. And things will be all in sale. So I'm excited.
Love it. Love it. Same. Again, thank you, 8, for doing this. I greatly appreciate it. This was a conversation for the ages. And I hope that we can have you in person soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I've had a great time and I appreciate it. And we will be here again soon.
Yes.
So thank you so
absolutely.
much.
This is not your last time on the show.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. And with that, friends, thank you so much for listening. And I will see you next week.